she could be seen on CNN's election night coverage, debate, and primetime panels. Kayleigh graduated from Harvard Law School with a Juris Doctor and Georgetown University School of Foreign Services with a degree in international politics. She also studied politics and international relations at Oxford University at St. Edmund Hall. Kayleigh is a Simon & Schuster author and recently published the book, The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement, which we have copies here and she'll be signing in the back afterwards if you'd like to get a signed copy from Kayleigh. I would like you, and this is her first time out to Oregon, as she told me. She was very excited to be here, and she's been touring around Portland, sampling our food and wine, local food and wine. She said she loved it. So everybody, let's give a warm Oregon welcome to Kayleigh as she comes to speak today.
To be here with you guys today. We have been loving Oregon. My sister is here, my mom are here, there in the back corner. We've been exploring downtown, and just what a beautiful city and a beautiful state. And we've already decided we're coming back in the summer. And I'm told snow is rare here, but we, I guess, brought the snow, so I'm sorry about that. We had quite a bit in DC, or the swamp as I like to call it. But as you heard, prior to joining the RNC, where I'm the national spokesperson, I was a commentator at the Fake News Network, otherwise known as CNN. So, yeah, there is fake news over there. I was always the lone Trump supporter on the 8-on-1 panels, and I say 8-on-1 because the host is included among the liberal commentators. There's simply no doubt about that. When you consider the folks who are there, like Anderson Cooper and Don Lemon, very nice people, but very wrong in politics, I will say that. But maybe you guys were good conservatives not watching CNN. I hope most of you watch Fox News instead. That's great. I'm more often on Fox these days, and I like keeping it that way. Yes. But anyway, being an 8-on-1 person at CNN is probably a lot like being a conservative out here in Oregon. I know it's not easy. I know it's tough. I know you're constantly having to defend your point of view. But know this, it makes you stronger. It makes you tougher. You know, I've spent the last decade of my life in very liberal institutions. You heard them named off. Harvard Law School, Oxford University, Georgetown, very liberal places. But it made me stronger. The fire made me tough. It made me have to defend my arguments. So I could go out on CNN and tell my friends, my neighbors, the fellow commentators why I'm a conservative. I think it makes you stronger being here as opposed to a red state where people just pat you on the back when they see your MAGA hat. Probably not the same here as I imagine with Antifa. I hear they're quite robust. I'm sorry about that. Must be tough to deal with. But you know, prior to going to Ivy League schools in Oxford, I grew up in a very small town called Plant City, Florida. It's the world's strawberry capital. It's in Tampa, Florida, right outside of Tampa, Florida, I should say. And I was raised by a dad who built a roofing company from the ground up. His mom worked 2 jobs, was a single mom because his father died when he was very young. And my mom was a teacher turned stay-at-home mom, and I really learned the values of faith, the values that animated my conservative beliefs, and that kind of, you know, helped me stay grounded as I went to these very liberal institutions. So I'm really just a small town girl, and I think that has stayed with me, certainly embedded me and emboldened me in my conservatism. But you know, I will tell you, it does seem like just yesterday that I was on CNN and I got to watch those agonizing faces when President Trump became President Trump on a day I like to relive. November 2016, it was a very beautiful day, and I remember, yeah, it was a great day. And Jeffrey Lord, yes, someone said Jeffrey Lord. I'd be remiss if I do not mention Jeffrey Lord. He was fantastic. Occasionally I got a Trump ally, and that was Jeff Lord. He's wonderful. But I remember one of my final exchanges in the presidential debate, it was in Las Vegas, Nevada, was with David Axelrod. And I remember saying to him, hey, I listen to Rush Limbaugh, David, and I said this on the airwaves. I love Rush. I'm a Rush baby. Grew up listening to Rush. My dad's Trump. Love Rush. So I said, Rush Limbaugh made a good point. And of course, you get the snarky laughs immediately when you say that on a CNN panel. But I said, Rush made the point, it doesn't matter what television station you turn on, everyone is operating under the premise that Donald Trump is about to lose the election. And I said, I just don't believe that premise. David Axelrod, who for those of you who don't know was Obama's campaign manager, said to me, I've been involved in campaigns for a long time. No one in modern history has recovered from a deficit like this. And I said, but David, no one in modern history has won a primary spending only half of what his 3 opponents did. And David said, Kayleigh, God bless you. I appreciate your undying commitment. I'm just telling you what the facts are. Well, the fact is, less than a month later, Donald Trump would go on to be president of the United States, and David And I thought I'd give you guys a little taste of what it was like on those CNN panels. I know you guys probably exhibited watching the TV, and I think we have a clip right here we're going to play. Hopefully you guys have it. This is beautiful.
Trump just last week, he confirmed to the National Review that he's again considering a run in 2016.
Do it. Which does not want you to be president, but which finally wants you to run.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
So people think that Donald Trump is a clown.
Yeah, Donald Trump is a clown. And does anybody seriously think that Donald Trump is serious about running for president?
Donald Trump, you know, he's a clown. The likely moderator apparently believes that Donald Trump is a clown.
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
Hey.
Loser.
Real Donald Trump. At least I will go down as a president.
The beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end?
This is probably starting of the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency.
The strongest person usually isn't the loudest one in the room.
So right now we have Hillary's about 75 or 80% favorite with different versions of this.
Up by double digits nationally, 12 points, 50 to 38 in four-way race.
What's it leading in Florida? What's it leading in North Carolina? What's it leading in Ohio? What's it leading in Nevada? I could go on and on and on.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
And so, right now, Mr. Trump, to answer your call for political honesty, I just want to say, you're not going to be president, all right? It's been fun. It's been great. I love you. But come on, buddy.
Your major projection right now, Donald Trump will take Ohio. That's
Yeah, motherfuckers.
Nebraska with its 5 electoral votes, and Wyoming with its 3 electoral votes. Sorry to keep you waiting, complicated business.
Yeah.
You're not laughing so much, I'll tell you.
I love reliving that moment. It's a great video. My sister is a 100-meter hurdler, and she said she used to watch that before her track meets to rough it up a little bit. It's a great video, but it became pretty clear to me as I was at CNN that there was a real chasm between the punditry and the people. The people who never left the Manhattan newsrooms, the people who never left the swamp. That's what they thought, but they didn't see it coming because they never went out and actually spoke to the people. And I was sitting there in that room on CNN tonight as Wolf Blitzer was forced to utter all of those wins for Donald Trump. I gotta tell you, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Before we went out to the set, I remember the Hillary Clinton pundits that said, we just got the exit polls back. Hillary Clinton's about to be the next president. I was so dismayed. I texted my husband. I said, you know, he's going to win, or excuse me, she's going to win. And he wrote back to me, how are you saying that? The polls haven't even closed. Don't listen to what they're telling you. And I didn't listen to them. And as the night transpired, man, there's just a look of agony on the face of my friend Van Jones and Paul Begala and Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer and Gloria Borger, etc., etc. And as Jeffrey Lord and I were at our little computers, he was monitoring his home state of Pennsylvania, I was monitoring Florida, I would sit up a little taller and Jeff would sit up a little taller and the rest of the room just kind of slumped down. It was something to see. But they're really, all the way through the elections, the press just got it wrong. And I just wanted to review some of the few flawed narratives they had, some of the many, I should say. First, it was Donald Trump's not going to run. Newsday said, Donald Trump says he's forming an exploratory committee for president, and mermaids have been spotted near the Atlantis. So he wasn't going to run. Then he was going to drop out, according to the media. Chris Cillizza of CNN wrote, he should never even be covered as a close to serious candidate. Then all of a sudden Donald Trump had a ceiling. We kept hearing about the ceiling of support he was going to hit. But that so-called ceiling, it was 10% in July, 20% in August, 30% in September, eventually getting to the point where Donald Trump earned 13.3 million votes in the Republican primary, more than any nominee in the history of our party, more than Reagan, more than Bush, more than those before him. It's pretty remarkable feat. Yes. And then my favorite prediction was that of CNBC's Ben White. Ben White, he said this, Donald Trump is not going to be the next president. This reporter is already on record pledging to eat a bag of rusty nails if the real estate tycoon manages to snag the GOP nomination. Unclear whether White ever made good on that promise. But in my book, one of the many people I interviewed was Jared Kushner, who's a great advisor of the president. And he said to me, the press, they were just always talking to each other. He said they never, essentially what I said, never took the time to get to know the people. But normally, perennial failure to do your job costs you your job. But in media, you're rewarded. If you're wrong, if you're anti-Trump, if you don't do your job well, you're rewarded and in many cases promoted. It's something I've never understood. But look, this is why we conservatives, we've really got to stick together. We have to. Because the media is against us, and let me tell you, you guys probably know this all too well, being out on the West Coast and hearing a lot more about Silicon Valley than I often do on my coast, but they're trying to suppress us on social media, for sure, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I don't know if some of you guys saw this week, you probably didn't unless you're following my Twitter feed or maybe saw me on Fox, but I was banned from Instagram. I don't know. Yeah, banned from Instagram. And you ask me why? Well, let me back up there. Did you guys hear the news today that Pocahontas declared she's running for president? You did. Yes, well, long story short, Pocahontas decided not too long ago it was a good idea to take a DNA test, where she found out she was 1 in 1,024th Native American, less than the average European American, and she went out still touting the fact that she was Native American, which is a false claim. Nevertheless, she did it, but she said, I never used it to get ahead in my job. Until the Washington Post found her Texas bar card, where she self-describes as, quote, Indian American. I decided to put up the image on my Instagram, literally reported by the liberal Washington Post, reported by CNN, reported by Fox. I put the picture on my Instagram. Woke up the next morning, says you've been temporarily suspended from Instagram because you bullied, harassed, and blackmailed Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
No kidding, no kidding. Yeah. Incredible. Thankfully, because of my position, I was able to tell Fox News and Daily Caller and all these other conservative publications who ended up getting to Instagram, and after about 24 hours, they announced that they had erroneously removed my posts, erroneously suspended me, and would reinstate it all. And what made me so sad about this story is I had the ability to contact Fox and the Daily Caller, but there are millions of conservatives around this country that are banned every day, that are censored every day, and they don't have that ability. It's why we've got to stick together. It's why we've got to support one another. It's why we've got to get the message out there however we can. So let me tell you, one of the questions I'm most often asked is, what is the greatest Donald Trump accomplishment? There are lots. There are a ton. Neil Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh. You look at the economy roaring, that we've retaked our place on the world stage as being the lead country of this universe. I mean, that wasn't the same under the apology tour of Obama, but there's so much good. I mean, I can't ever name one. But I gotta tell you, this is one of my favorite Trump actions, and it happened just 2 weeks ago. It went something like this. Dear Madam Speaker, due to the shutdown, I'm sorry to inform you your trip to Brussels. Oh yeah. Egypt and Afghanistan has been postponed. We will reschedule the 7-day excursion when the shutdown is over. I am sure you would agree that postponing this public relations event is totally appropriate. Sincerely, President Donald Trump. Great. I'm not entirely sure that Nancy Pelosi agreed with him, but the images were priceless. A red cart with her luggage pushed back in front of her office. You had the Air Force bus circling the block with the Democrats on it. You had Adam Schiff, who apparently someone told me he was refusing to get off the bus, or was certainly looking pretty sad as he deboarded, but it was incredible. But in all sincerity, you know, the president was doing the right thing. When Nancy Pelosi decided to vacation in Hawaii, the next week the Democrats went off to a beach vacation in Puerto Rico, and they were going to go on this world tour. And President Trump said, no, we got to get to the business of the American people. And while he has not compromised on principle in these negotiations, what he has done, and I think it's important, and the American people and independents around the country are taking notice, is he has been the reasonable one in this border negotiation. He said, I'm not caving on the wall. The wall's happening, we need a border barrier. However, I'll work with you. I'll change it. If you're uncomfortable with concrete for some reason, I'll change it to steel. He said he would do a temporary relief, not amnesty, but temporary relief for DACA recipients. He has been seen as the reasonable one, and I'll tell you, public polling showed that 56% saw President Trump as making good faith overtures to Nancy Pelosi, who is being exposed as the radical, open borders, abolish ICE person that we all know that she is. And she's being exposed. And so that's why, you know, one of the things I say about the president is he's a great deal maker. And a lot of things he does are strategic. And I think the DACA temporary relief, which was only for 3 years, was an effort to show the nation, hey, even if I give her what she wants, she still wants open borders. She's still not going to come to the table. And that's what I think we're seeing each and every day as we approach this February 15th deadline, where the president will either declare a national emergency or we shut down the government. But one thing I know, we are getting that border barrier because of this president, and he will not be caving in that. Unfortunately, the sad truth is Democrats are fakers, they are posers. They do not care about DACA recipients. They don't care about illegal immigrants. They don't care about the safety of the American people. They did not care about the worker not getting their paycheck during the shutdown. All you need to know is what Nancy Pelosi's solution to the border crisis is: mowing the grass. She literally said, if you mow the grass, it will solve illegal immigration. How nonsensical. I think even she knows that's stupid, but she said it anyway, and it just shows where her loyalties lie. But speaking of this, I think what we've seen with the border negotiations is this is a symptom of a much bigger problem, and that's that the radical left has really overtaken the Democratic Party. And look no further than who has become the face of the Democratic Party: Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's amazing. Let's review some of the things she said. The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. Her Green New Deal this week literally says we are not going to get to zero emissions in 10 years. I'm not kidding, because of, quote, cow farting and the inability to eliminate airplanes. This is what she said. It is psychotic. Then she says she can't name the 3 branches of government, and she's a sitting congresswoman now. She says the unemployment rate is so low because everyone has 2 jobs. She's an economics major. It's incredible. And you have DNC Chair Tom Perez saying she is the future of our party. I certainly hope so. One thing she said recently, though, is a system that allows billionaires to exist is immoral. And Charles Payne over at Fox Business had a really good response to this. He said, let's look over at the continent of Africa. Do you know who the richest woman is there? A woman named Isabel dos Santos. She's worth $2.8 billion. She's the daughter of a dictator. Meanwhile, the average Angolan makes $4,000. He said, let's move on over to Venezuela, where the richest person in Venezuela is worth $5 billion. It's the daughter of Hugo Chavez, who repeatedly decries the rich and the billionaires as evil and lazy. And here's what Charles Payne said after he listed these examples of these socialist countries that have horrific policies that only benefit those who are related to the dictator. Here's what he said: I'm not a billionaire, I am a millionaire. When I was born, I had nothing. I lived in an apartment with no heat, no water. So if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't like the system where someone from Harlem can live an amazing life, give to charities, help raise people, help educate people, if she doesn't like this society, the alternative is one where the dictator's kids are the only billionaires. And a very good argument, a good argument against socialism. But the argument he made, the reason I shared that with you is because we all have to become articulate in making an argument against socialism. And I'm sad to say that. I thought that ended in the 80s, but unfortunately it's coming back and becoming mainstream in the Democratic Party. There's no doubt about it. We're not dealing with the party of JFK anymore. We're just simply not. That's not who the Democratic Party is. And I think most of you watched the State of the Union, I assume, right? Yeah. So you probably noticed the sea of Democratic women wearing white, where when President Trump, and I got to see President Trump the day before the State of the Union, spend some time with him, the Vice President, he was in such good spirits. So if you ever feel bad for everything he has to handle, he is in such good spirits and was so pumped to go out and give that State of the Union address. And here's what we saw from the sea of women wearing white. They would not stand when President Trump said we will never be a socialist country. Incredible. They would not stand when President Trump said you should not be able to kill a baby that feels pain. They would not stand or clap. And AOC would not stand when President Trump lauded ICE for locking up sex traffickers. She would not stand until she was prodded by the congresswoman next to her. And that's the sad, sad state of the Democratic Party. But in all seriousness, it's very fun to poke fun at AOC, it really is. But I'll tell you this, we need to take her seriously. And here's why. Because while she's very naive, there's no doubt about that, she's professing a very dangerous, dangerous ideology. She said this recently, this didn't get much coverage. Right now we have this hyper-capitalism. What this means is profit at any cost. Capitalism has not always existed in the world. It will not always exist in the world. Someone else said this, and I'm not going to tell you who yet. What the bourgeoisie therefore produces above all are its own grave diggers. Its fall and the victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable. That was Karl Marx. And what she said was a third grader's way of saying what he said. It's very scary. It really is that she's professing socialism and she's now a sitting congresswoman alongside many others who are doing the same. And I spent nearly a decade in academia, and I can tell you that I was quite thrilled there that when I encountered extremist ideas, they were relegated to the faculty lounge or the classroom. But that all changed with President Obama. Radical ideas took the throne of governance, and they're continuing to do so, and we have to fight against it. Because when you look at the Democrats right now, 60%, according to Gallup, 60% have a favorable view of socialism. It's extraordinary. The Associated Press said the number of people running with the endorsement of the Democratic Socialist Party at the state, federal, and local level last election was 42. The ranks have swelled from 6,000 dues-paying members to 42,000. So the Democratic Socialists are growing rapidly, and so too is socialism within the Democratic Party. And it's so curious to me because when you look at the failed socialist experiment in Venezuela and Cuba and Red China before they went the route of capitalism, it's a history of failure. Consider Venezuela alone, where I'm so proud of our president for saying we're going to stand with the people and be the first government to recognize Juan Guaido, the new leader. We set the stage. We led on the world stage. 35 other countries have followed us in saying we want freedom, we want peace in Venezuela, we want the will of the Venezuelan people. Because look at what socialism has done to Venezuela. This is so, so, so scary. Inflation there, 10 million% is how much they expect it to go up this year. This is an oil-rich country, very rich country in natural resources. It should be benefiting its people, it's not. When you consider the fact that in Venezuela, a cup of coffee used to cost a half of a bolivar, now costs $800. Imagine if your cup of coffee went from 50 cents to $800. Your wage is worthless. Doesn't matter if you have a wage at that point. You look at the weight of the people, nearly 75% of the population has lost 19 pounds or more in weight. Incredible. Poverty, 90% are living in poverty in Venezuela. 3 million have fled. Nearly 7% of the population have fled the country. Murder rate, highest in the peacetime world. Socialism is killing the country, and yet this is what Democrats want to bring to our shore. And look, if you don't believe that, go look on Bernie Sanders' website under the must-read section. There's a 2011 editorial. Here's what it says. Literally a quote on a U.S. senator's website. The American dream is more apt to be realized in Venezuela. It's on his website. But here's the real thing. I've talked to you about Venezuela, but Democrats are getting smarter than that now. They're disguising their intent. They're disguising socialism. That's why Bernie Sanders on the debate stage said, I'm not talking about Venezuela, I'm not talking about Cuba, I'm talking about Finland, I'm talking about Denmark, I'm talking about democratic socialism, not socialism. They're getting very good at disguising it, and they use beautiful euphemistic terms like Medicare for all and universal basic income and these really nice terms. But they're wrapping the scourge of socialism in a beautiful mantra, and make no mistake about it, it is a scourge on society. And let's just break down some of their proposals, because I think it's really important that all of us going into 2020 are able to make articulate arguments against the elements of socialism that they're proposing. You look at Medicare for all, which is really Medicare for none. It's really single-payer health care. Bernie, when he proposed this in 2013, had 0 co-sponsors. He now has 1/3 of Senate Democrats. 2/3 of congressmen in the House support this radical proposal. And you look at Canada, where they have so-called Medicare for all or single payer, where they had wait times have doubled. They've literally doubled in Canada. In fact, to see a specialist, sometimes it takes 5 months to see a specialist, quite a long time. And one study found that 63,090 Canadian women may have died as a result of sitting on a wait list. So that it's incredible. And UK fares no better when you have the National Health Service saying they had their worst accident and emergency wait times on record. And this is a quote straight from the BBC. It is estimated that there are up to 9,000 deaths in hospitals each year because of failure in NHS care. That is what Medicare for all looks like, and we have to share it with our neighbors. You look at free college, something else Bernie wants. Sounds great, right? Well, not so much. He had 0 co-sponsors for this, by the way. Now he has 7. So also a rapid talking point in the Democratic Party. Joe Biden now supports it as well. They tried that in the UK, and they found that it increased inequality, depleted student resources, and in the G7 countries, college attainment rates are higher in countries that charge tuition than in those that did not. We've got government-mandated wage. Government-mandated wage. Bernie used to have 5 co-sponsors. He now has 30. Washington Post, very liberal publication. They were at least truthful in this. They had a very credible, that was their quote, very credible study of Seattle's $15 minimum wage. What they found is the average low-wage worker in the city lost $125 a month because of the hike in the minimum wage, the resulting number of employers who cut payroll, stopped hiring, or let employees go. Universal basic income. This is a really fringy idea. It's one that got the endorsement of President Obama, where people just don't work and we literally hand out free wages. I mean, it's incredible. So Obama now supports that. They tried it in Finland. But Finland just announced, after the 2-year experiment of universal basic income, they can continue the program no longer. It costs $5.6 trillion, by the way, to do this. 3.6, I should say. And that's the problem with socialism, really, is cost. It would require massive tax increases for all of us. Single payer over a decade would cost $32 trillion. Free college, $2 trillion. The Green New Deal, to get rid of the cow farts, $2 to $5.7 trillion. And meanwhile, if you taxed every single millionaire in this country at the rate of 70%, which is what AOC wants to do, it would only raise $720 billion. You would need more than 40 times that to fund these programs. So it's incredible, and that's what we're up against, but it's not just the economic side. It's also things like abolish ICE. 90% of House Democrats would not vote on a simple resolution to say we support immigration and custom enforcement. 90% of House Democrats wouldn't vote on it. It's amazing. ICE, by the way, seized 2,370 pounds of fentanyl. That's a synthetic opioid that is ravaging our country. That's enough to kill every man, woman, child in this country. It's incredible. It's pouring across our border, and ICE, they are heroes for what they do, but yet 90% of Democrats will not vote to support them. And meanwhile, 54 Democrats, just 5 years ago, all 455 Senate Democrats voted to double apportionment fencing on the Mexico border, end chain migration, end the diversity lottery, and give $40 billion in border security funding, more than 8 times what the president has asked him for. That was just 10 years ago, but the left has become so incredibly radical. And the one that gets me the most, the one that I even find it hard to believe, is the endorsement of infanticide. And that is what it is. You look at New York's law. New York now has abortion until birth. At week four of a baby's life, it's hard to beat 65 times per minute. Month 2, by the way, this is Cleveland Clinic I'm quoting, I didn't make this up. Month 2, facial features have developed. Month 3, fully formed. Month 6, if premature, baby may survive. Month 7, responds to pain, and it feels pain far earlier, but responds to pain. Month 9, ready to enter the world, according to Cleveland Clinic. You can still kill your baby in New York. It's incredible. A week later, it got even worse. It's horrifying to me. It got even worse. And by the way, I should back up and say, when this law passed in New York, it was celebrated. It got a standing ovation in the New York legislature, and One World Trade glowed pink in celebration of this horrific law. And then it was days later that the disgraced governor of Virginia said that the infant would be delivered. If a baby was being delivered, the mom wanted to abort it, a botched abortion, the baby would be delivered, infant would be kept comfortable, infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. That is outright infanticide, make no mistake about it, and I echo Marco Rubio in saying, I never thought I would see a day in America that government officials openly supported infanticide. And that is unfortunately where we are, because when Nancy Pelosi was asked about the comments of Governor Northam in the immediate 24 hours afterwards, she said, I'm sorry, I haven't heard those comments. Yeah, she had heard those comments. It's ridiculous. And if you wanted to make it even clearer that this is where the Democratic Party now sits, look at the Senate floor on Monday. There was a Born Alive Act that simply said if a baby is born alive after a botched abortion, you must keep that baby alive. It was blocked by Senate Democrats, blocked by them. This is incredible. This is just 10 years ago. There was news that President Obama had voted present on a Born Alive law in Illinois. And he was beside himself when people said, oh, so you don't want to keep the baby alive outside of the womb. He was beside himself. He said, people who said this about him were liars. David Brody over at Christian Broadcasting Network said it was the most impassioned he had ever seen President Obama when he questioned him on this. That was 10 years ago. Now you have Democrats celebrating 9-month abortion. You have a sitting governor talking about infanticide, and you have Senate Democrats blocking a proposal to give a baby help outside of the womb if it is a botched abortion. It is incredible how radical they have become on every front, from socialism to abolish ICE to infanticide. It is very, very, very frightening. They have come so far. And we have a really big challenge on our hands. We've got a slow and troubling creep toward radicalism, and we have a challenge. We've got to combat this. But here's the good news. Farther left they go, the more Americans they leave behind. And it's safe to say the American people are going to choose the party of Lincoln over the party of Lenin.